Now, everyone that I've ever met that's like really successful in any way, they've always said the biggest regret that I've ever had is I always played small. And even when I thought I was playing big, it was just always small. Small plans means small results and, small actions, small goals, like all those things. Yeah, in my personal opinion, I think if you're not, setting yourself unrealistic goals and pushing yourself, I think you're doing yourself an injustice. Like, I don't know why you'd be playing so safe, to be honest.
The goal isn't to live forever. The goal is to create something that will.
Welcome to Perspective, a podcast for wedding creatives, where we sit down often with a special guest and talk about our many years of experience in the wedding industry so that you can learn from us and grow your wedding business. I have to tell you something, I've been obsessed with today's guest, Jai Long, who is broadcasting all the way from Melbourne, Australia, to talk to us about mindset and how setting unrealistic goals will most certainly have a big impact on our businesses. For those of our listeners unfamiliar with today's guest, Jai is a mentor in mindset, habits, money strategies, productivity, and creative business. But as a fellow listener of his chart-topping podcast, Make Your Break, I can say he knows his shit. Jai is also a serial entrepreneur running a 6- and 7-figure business. He's a Rangefinder 30 rising star wedding photographer at freethebird. He is a founder of the Wedding Photography Summit. He runs the 6-figure business map and has just launched a vegan clothing label over at noskin.co. I think this episode, which of course is sponsored by With Jack and for a limited time only by Beans IE, is going to be fire. But Greg, what are we drinking?
We are drinking some more coffee from our Beans.ie subscription, and it's the little sample pack that they sent out this month.
Yeah.
And it's from Hola Coffee, which I think is from Madrid.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the Brazilian Santo Andre. And it said sample for espresso. So we brewed it up in our espresso machine.
Yes, we did. Hang on.
I've not tried it yet. What's your first take on it?
Oh my God, the chocolate just came right through there. You getting that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, totally.
That's intense chocolate. Damn.
So obviously in the UK it's 10 o'clock right now and we're drinking espressos. I think we might be mad, but what the hell?
So like I mentioned, guys, we are sponsored by Beans.ie. As photographers, filmmakers, and business owners, we know the power of stories, and Beans.ie do too. Beans.ie started because they knew there were so many stories about the world of coffee, and not just about the regions or the varieties, but about the people behind the coffee, the roasters, and us, the drinkers. This is the most flexible coffee subscription that we've ever used, showcasing some of the top roasters around the world, bringing something different to the table. If you've been listening to Greg and I talk for years about what we've been drinking at our podcast table, you might get excited by this because now you can join us. Curate your own monthly subscription from an ever-changing list of beautiful coffees, and because we love you so much, we have a promo code for you. Perspective15, that's Perspective 15, to get 15% off your first order. That's promo code Perspective15 to get 15% off your first order for coffees with stories sent straight to your door.
So,
yeah.
Jai, how are you and what are you drinking?
Good, guys. Thanks for inviting me up.
Our pleasure. We're so excited to have you on.
Yeah, that was quite an intro. Makes me feel all special.
You've got so many accolades. Getting through them was quite a hard task, I have to say. Whoofed.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
No, it's fine. I love it. I love it, man. I love it. So what are you drinking?
So right now I'm drinking chamomile tea, actually. It's morning time here in Melbourne, and I was feeling a little bit under the weather, and I thought, I will have a chamomile tea and I'll probably just take a day off today. And so that's my day.
Yeah. Are you a coffee drinker? Because I believe the coffee scene in Melbourne in particular, and Australia as well, is quite strong.
Yeah, the Melbourne here it's big, and the coffee's amazing here, and I drink at least a coffee a day. Absolutely.
Yeah. On the recent episodes, we've been drinking from Proud Mary, a roaster in Melbourne. I don't know if you know them.
Yeah, they're just around the corner from my house.
Oh, really?
Awesome. That's what
cool.
we've been drinking the last few episodes.
Yeah, and they're really, really, really lovely as well. Yeah.
I'll go in and say hi for you.
Oh yeah, please do. Our sponsor would love that, actually.
Awesome.
But yeah, so Jai, I have just kind of discovered you maybe a couple of months ago, and I have been absolutely loving your podcast. But I feel like, where the hell have you been all my life,
Mate, I'm just, I mustn't be that good at marketing if you only just found me. You missed the boat. What's happening?
Well, we quite often like to talk to our listeners, and your name got thrown up. And ever since then, I have just been like consuming your podcast relentlessly.
Awesome. I appreciate that, man.
Yeah, and for our listeners out there, I did mention it, but it is the Make Your Break podcast. And it's quite cool because they've, Jai, you've had some amazing podcast guests on as well. Ferrarista and Eric Floberg, who have also been on Perspective. And even Sai Moore, we're going to be speaking to, next week, Greg?
Yeah, roughly this time next week, I think, as well.
So very much looking forward to that as well.
Sai Moore is one of my favorite humans ever. You're in for a treat for that one.
Yeah, I can't even remember what podcast it was. I'm assuming it was yours, but I don't know the episode. And you guys were just chatting and chatting and chatting, and I was just, man, this is such a good vibe. So it got me excited to get Sai.
He's good.
Yeah, but I've loved Sai's work for quite some time. Ever since delving into film, which I know you're into as well, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely. It's probably how me and Sai met as well.
Very cool, very cool.
So Simon mentioned in his long introduction about you that you've got loads of businesses on the go. You've got loads of things, but I think the latest one's the vegan clothing range. Is that right? How's that going?
Yeah, that's right. Yep, we're just launching that at the moment.
How's it going?
It's going really good. It's been a couple of years in the making now, and we got serious about a year ago, and we got a lot of stock coming in from all over the world, and it's really exciting. We're just doing our first product shoots and getting some stuff out to influencers and people, and on that path at the moment.
Yeah, I saw you were doing some shoots. I think it was Instagram stories that you had posted it on. I was like, oh yes, this must be exciting.
Yeah, it's exciting.
How did that all happen?
Well, to be honest, it's I think like vegan clothing in Melbourne, it's always like if you buy like vegan clothing, you're kind of special, and you don't get to wear something trendy because they're like, oh, we'll make it ethical, but we'll also make it really ugly for you. And I kind of just hated the fact that if I wanted something that didn't have leather or didn't use dyes or glues and stuff like that coming from animals, I had to dress like a dork basically. And so I just figured, like, you know what, there's a massive market. Like veganism is growing huge. It's expected to 3 times in the next couple of years. And like, why not create something that's actually trendy, and it doesn't have to you don't even have to know it's vegan. It's just that we're taking all the animals out of the supply chain. And so for me, I'm passionate about that, and I just figured it's a great idea.
Yeah, no, it's definitely awesome, and a great cause. I tried going vegan. Was it last year? Oh no, the years have slipped by me. It was 2 years ago. Shocking. But
how many days did you last?
I think I got 3 months, which was better than nothing. But I did struggle to kind of consume the protein because I was going to the gym at the time and all sorts of things.
Totally.
But yeah, no, good on vegans. I really do love the cause, and yeah, I just maybe you know what, I should make that a 2021 thing.
Give it a go again. There you go.
Yeah, definitely. Just a Q&A reminder to our Clubhouse listeners. Thank you very much for joining us this evening or this morning, wherever you are. If you're not members of our Patreon, you can grab some of the content later. But yeah, like I said, the Q&A will be a little bit later in the podcast. So if you have any questions that you want to ask Jai in particular, you can speak directly to him. However, Greg, let's get moving on. Jai, obviously I gave you a introduction, but I always like to hear from our guests themselves. Who are you and what do you do?
So my name's Jai, Jai Long. I'm a wedding photographer. I'm a wedding photographer business coach. I'm an entrepreneur here in Melbourne, Australia. And I've been on this path for quite a while. My first business was when I was 20 years old and I was bankrupt by the time I was 21. So that's around 13, 14 years ago. And since then, I've had plenty of successful businesses and not so successful businesses. And I have, I've kind of carved my way through working out how can I do what I love and impact the people around me in a positive way every single day without having to work for the man or stress about money, stress about income, stress about time and all those type of things. So for me, I realized my superpower was to empower creatives, other creative entrepreneurs with the skill set and with the confidence and the mindset that they need to go forward and make a big impact in their lives, because a lot of the times we think it's for the privileged or it's for the special, it's for the, I don't know, like the small percentage, but the way I see it, it's like it's for everybody. Anyone that has the courage to go ahead and follow their dreams, and that's why I'm here.
Yeah,
sure.
That's amazing. How did it all start for you chasing your dreams in business? When did you sort of realize you wanted to be like entrepreneurial?
I think when I was probably like 5 years old, to be honest. Like I was that kid that was like, hustling, selling lemonade at the lemonade stand and selling rocks down by the river and all that kind of stuff. I think for me, we grew up with no money, and I think I always sort of seen like, business people, they're the ones that rule the world and they got all the money and stuff like that, and they seem to have all the things that they want. And from a young age, my parents used to fight so much about money all the time. There wasn't enough money. They both didn't have a job, and they had 5 kids to look after and on welfare and all that kind of stuff. And we would, a lot of Christmases, it was like standing in line to get for charities to give us something, and furniture would be from big charity drop-offs, and clothes were from charities, and food was from charities. And I think I didn't feel, I always just felt like dependent, I guess. And I was like, man, I don't want to be like this. I want to be independent. And so as I was growing, I'd go to school, and I left school when I was about 15, 16, and I decided I was just going to go after it. Like there was no options for me. It wasn't like, what are you going to do when you grow up? It was like, you need to do something now to help pay the bills at home, sort of thing. And business for me was the thing that got me, it changed my life, because when you have a business, you are the boss. So you have that kind of security. It's like, I know how to make new money. I know how to go out there and get the things that I want, where a lot of the times people think that business is like starting your own business and going out is the risky thing. It's more safe to work for someone else. That's a safe, secure job. But for me, safe, secure job is for me working for myself, because I don't want to depend on someone else and their business skills with my life. Especially when something like COVID-19 comes, and we've seen this. Like if you have a look at the unemployment rate, it's all the people that had the safe jobs, not the entrepreneurs. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think because of that mindset, growing up like that, I realized that if I work for myself, there's no limit to what I can do. And when I had a job, I used to tell everybody, if I didn't have a job, I'd make so much more money, because I'm limited to the time that I work, the amount of money I can make each week because I'm on a salary, the amount that I can actually do. Like there's just so many limits. So because it's such a small confined box, I'm just not interested in that. I've always wanted to go out and prove to myself what I can do and sort of push those boundaries. So yeah, I guess I'm definitely born and bred business. Like I absolutely love it, and I think it's life changing for so many people.
Yeah. It's a really interesting take on the 9-to-5 and money in general, because as you say, a lot of people do assume security comes from the 9-to-5 and having an employer, but the way you see it is it's refreshing and it's totally different. Yeah.
Well, think about it. Like if you have a 9-to-5, you're dependent. You're dependent on somebody else to cut your paycheck each week, and for them to level up their knowledge, and for them to innovate their business, and for them to, grow and all those type of things. But for me, I'm independent. So when everyone says the economy's bad and we're going to lose the jobs and stuff like that, I'm like, your economy's bad because you chose to work for someone else. My economy's great. Okay, so you got to think about it. Like if you're independent, you have an independent economy as well. So that means you can control so much more. And we always have it so backwards. When we're dependent, it's hard to try and stay afloat during something like a pandemic or a GFC or anything else that happens, because the person that's running the ship, the captain of the ship that you're on, like they can go out of business in 2 seconds and they won't even think twice about you. So in my mind, it's so much more unsafe to dedicate my life to work for someone else's dreams. 100%.
Yeah, totally. You mentioned that at 21, you kind of got into a little bit of hardship there. Are you able to talk to us very briefly about that and how you overcame it?
Yeah, absolutely. So my first business was a massive cafe. It was in northern New South Wales of Australia, and funny enough, it was a vegan vegetarian cafe. And it could sit maybe about 300 people, and we used to have music festivals there, and it was just like a big monster of a thing. And I did an apprenticeship as an electrician before that, and I saved all my money. I bought a nice car and stuff, and then I sold my car and I sold all my things. I got out a big loan, got help from all my friends and family to sort of put together this cafe. And I did it because at the time, my dad was going through a lot. He was in and out of rehab and stuff like that, and I wanted to help him. And to be able to help him, I had to get him a job, but he was unemployable. So I had to make him a job. And so he was great at cooking. So the whole point of getting him a job or starting the cafe was to get him into the kitchen. So then he had a purpose and he could get off the drugs and all that kind of stuff. It was obviously hard for me because he actually passed away from a drug overdose 2 weeks before I opened the cafe and just before my 21st birthday. So from the get-go, my why was gone. And if you're running a business and you don't have a strong, solid why, it's pretty hard to get any kind of success. So I pushed on for about a year, and I didn't know business. Like I was literally just like, if I sell a coffee, if I'm selling it more for more than what it cost me to make, then I'm making money. And that was the basics I knew of business, right? And it took me a little while to learn that there was like more to it, but it is that basic. But yeah, it took me about 12 months to the day before I was hanging on for dear life, and I had to close up shop and forego everything to the bank and declare bankruptcy. So it was probably the lowest point of my life that year, and it's also the most that I've ever learned and the most that I've ever grown, and it set me up for the success that I got later on down the track. So it's in hindsight, it's probably one of the best things that's ever happened to me, to be honest. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sorry to hear about your dad. Obviously, I can't even imagine what that's like to go through. You mentioned your why, and I've heard a lot of people talk about like what your why should be. Is money a good enough why?
Look, the thing is with wedding photography and the wedding photography business, if you want to make money, there's way easier ways to make money. That's not really why anyone becomes a wedding photographer or a wedding videographer or anything like that. Like I can think of a squillion ways to make so much money. If I just sat at home and just traded crypto and got on the shares, I'd make more money than a year make wedding photography.
Yeah.
But we don't go into it because we want to make money, do we? We go into it because we love what we're doing. Like it's a purpose-driven life that we have. We're creating art, and the fact that we get to live a good lifestyle at the same time, it's kind of like a perfect storm. It's like a mix. So I wouldn't say like anyone's out there that I've ever met is going like, yeah, man, I'm going to get rich. I'm going to become a wedding photographer, because like I don't really know any rich wedding photographers, and you have to work bloody hard to make that happen.
Yeah.
I know there's lots of comfortable wedding photographers, absolutely. But yeah, so I think on the other side of things though is people don't have to view themselves as a struggling artist. And I think too many people think just because I'm a photographer, I don't deserve to have a minimum wage or an income or make profit or actually make money. We're always trying to justify it, and we always justify it by going like, oh, I edit 40 hours a week and I have a VA and I do this and I do that. Like, you got to pay me my bigger prices because that's what I'm worth, because that's my bills. And we try and get people to pay our bills. And I did a podcast episode about this week, and it's like, it's an uninspiring way to push people away. Like, don't tell your clients that they need to pay your bills because you don't even want to pay your bills. That's not what it's all about, right? And so we go down that path of trying to justify why we charge so much, but it's not about that at all. It's not about us making money. It's not about us having to justify anything. In fact, like, as an artist, no one can replicate what you do. And I think that has the most value, and you don't have to justify it anywhere near as much. There was an NFT that just sold actually for $68 million, like a digital thing just like the other day, right? So does that person have to justify why that piece of digital art is worth $68 million? Like, I don't think so. The thing that they bought was the transformation. It's like, if I buy this piece of art for $68 million, I'm a talking point to the whole world. I'm going to look successful. My brand is going to be elevated. So there's other reasons why that person would buy something for $68 million. They don't buy it because they hoped the person sat there for 68 million hours thinking like, yeah, so if I just paid him $1 an hour, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there's always like, I wouldn't say like becoming a wedding creative is not the path to riches, but we don't need to feel guilty for not being a struggling artist. Like, we can absolutely make income, and we can make enough income to make as much money as the next person. I don't see why we need to struggle.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's actually really funny because I always do like pre-production for the podcast, like weeks in advance, and it's funny because obviously with your most recent podcast coming out, so this is the question I was originally going to ask, right? What's your take on pricing accordingly and charging what we're worth for the wedding industry? In your most recent episode, I think it was episode 86 of your podcast, you literally took that phrase, charging what you're worth, and you kind of like blow it up because it's kind of a nothing statement. It doesn't mean anything, which I had never thought about.
I got a little bit passionate on that episode. I was kind of actually expecting a lot of hate to come in from that episode, but I felt like sometimes people say things that people want to hear, and sometimes I'm like, man, you don't need to hear something. There's stuff that you have to hear and understand. So instead of saying like, hey, yeah, charge what you're worth, I'm like, let's dive into this and actually talk about like something totally different. When someone says, hey, this is my worth, it's like, why did you decide that was your worth? Was that you and your mum that decided that, hey, here's my worth, I'm not going to give a discount, this is what it is? And so many people, there's no science behind actually what they're worth. And it's so ego-driven of charging what you're worth because it's not about you. It's about your client and it's about the market. And in 2021, business is about our clients and the actual market. It's so important, right? So important because the thing is, like, there's clients out there that I know that they haven't booked me because I wasn't expensive enough. Someone else would, I'll quote them $15,000 and they'll go with the person that was $25,000 because that's what they wanted. They wanted an experience that was, it was elevated compared to what I was doing. And so when we believe that I'm charging what I'm worth, that's different to what someone's willing to pay. Completely different. And so it's so important that we adjust and adapt and pivot and do all those things to make sure we're best serving our clients, not best serving ourselves.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? And I did an analogy like this. And now imagine if you had a house, and this is what I said on the podcast. Imagine if you had a house and it was $1 million. And I seen this during COVID. So it's $1 million. And then the GFC hits, right? And then now no one will pay over $500,000 for your house anymore. So would you change the price of your house? Because is it still worth $1 million or is it worth $500,000? Now, to me, it's worth $500,000 because a house is only worth as much as someone's willing to pay. That's all it's worth. Yeah. It's not actually worth $1 million. And with COVID, when people were jumping on saying, I'll never drop my prices, I'll never change my prices. I don't care if there's a pandemic, and I don't care if other people doing smaller weddings. And it's like, if you were worth $10,000, like, are you still worth $10,000 if no one's willing to pay it? If there's no big weddings, if people are not going to fly around the world, if people don't have 200 guests, there's so many variables. And I'm like, if they're not, then you're not worth $10,000. It doesn't matter what you came up with in your mind of what your market value is, charge what you're worth, I'm never going to discount. It's like, well, the market dictates that and says, hey man, things have changed. A lot of things as well. Like, 1, you might be getting government grants. 2, you might not be paying rent because you're getting subsidies. There's so many other things that make things cheaper. And it means that maybe your living expenses are less and your business expenses are less. Maybe you're working from home, you don't have an office. Maybe you fired all your staff. Like, there's so many things that make business cheaper. So are you passing on that to your clients, or are you pocketing all that because you're not going to change what you're worth? I mean, you're not going to change what you're worth. You're not going to discount, right? So I just think, like, there's more to it than just making up a number in your head and then just saying, stuff it to the clients. Like, I think it comes down to, like, hey, talk to the clients and see what they actually want. Because when I've done that, I've actually worked out that a lot of my clients want to pay more than what I even charge. And they do want a better experience. It's just I'm not giving it to them because I'm not allowing them to pay me more money. So the more flexible you are and the more that you can adapt, the longer you're going to be in business for. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. Yeah. And talking about your wedding photography, it's obviously beautiful and recognised in Rangefinder, 30 Rising Star, and so on. But I once heard you mention that your wedding photography business, is the least time-consuming business that you have. And I'm sure there's a lot of people in the audience listening who are wedding photographers and that's their only business. And they're thinking, bloody hell, I spend all my day, every day working on that. How can that be as least time-consuming? So where's everybody going wrong?
No one's going wrong. Absolutely not. And we all work totally different. We all work totally different. And here's some light at the end of the tunnel. I've been doing it for 8 years, right? And so, guys, if you, like everyone listening right now, you don't need to be thinking, oh, I need to grind for 8 years. Like hopefully in 8 years' time, I'm still grinding as hard as I can. The thing is, and still hustling as hard as I can. The thing is, you need to make smart decisions now. Wherever you are in your business, you need to start working out what kind of marketing can you implement right now that's going to help you in the long game, because not many of us think about the long game. We all go for the short-term success, and the short-term success only lasts short-term, and it means you have to keep hustling. You have to keep hustling all the time. And so like with that statement, it's absolutely true for me because I've done so much hustle and now I'm like, well, that stuff's self-fulfilling now. I can keep going and I still get inquiries every single day because I've put in the long-term success path to make that happen. So I think the most important thing, like if someone wants a sustainable business, is empowering themselves with some business knowledge, So that's why like I've got a course for this kind of stuff, and there's so many great books, there's so many great coaches, there's so many great things out there.
Yeah.
A lot of people, they go to university and they spend so much money and they get student debt and all that kind of stuff, and then they've got no business skills. But then like business skills are the cheapest things you can get. Literally, they're in books and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, my advice is like learn as quick as you can the stuff that you need to know so you don't need to keep hustling on the things that don't work. And here's a good example. If you're trying to get somewhere and you're just thinking, man, if I just keep hustling, that will do it. It's just like trying to get somewhere but running on the treadmill. It doesn't matter how far you turn up that treadmill. You're going to run harder. You're going to sweat more. Yeah, you're going to burn calories. You're not going to get anywhere. But the second that you actually learn what actually works and makes a change, it means the guy next to me or the 10 people next to me are running on treadmill as hard as they can. And I can literally take my time and I can walk and I can scroll Instagram and I can spit on a podcast right now. I can do all these things and make such a bigger impact than everybody else that's like trying to hustle hard. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. If anyone's interested in sort of the pricing that we were talking about earlier to learn about that for their business, the episode of Jai's podcast is amazing. Highly recommend it. And we did a podcast, I think it was maybe episode 54, 55.
Yeah, something like that.
With Richard Lang in the UK, who talks about his flexible pricing method. So dive into that as well if you want to learn a bit more.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Especially if you're thinking you've got a price in mind, but you're kind of going up in like incremental steps. Like, oh, I'm going to increase my price to £200 every year. By the time you're hitting your price you actually want to charge, you're an old man or an old woman. So, yeah, just a Q&A reminder. Obviously, thank you very much for joining us on Clubhouse. If you aren't a member of our Patreon page, you are leaving some amazing content on the table because you'll get access to the Q&A through our Patreon, which is patreon.com/perspective by Cinemate. The link is in the show notes when the podcast releases. But yeah, let's hear a little bit from our sponsor.
With Jack was designed from the ground up and is tailored specifically for creatives. Whether you provide a service like design, development or photography or offer advice to clients, With Jack is for you. It's focused on creatives. Insurance shouldn't be complicated, so With Jack has made every step easy. You'll deal with one form and talk to one Jack as you sign up, get covered and move on with your day. With Jack is all about bespoke insurance for creatives. Simple. That doesn't mean more forms or faff, it means less. It's not about endless features and stale service. It's about one solid policy and the personal touch. Bye-bye unnecessary fuss. Hello, creative friendly insurance. Be a confident creative.
Jai, as a mentor in business who often addresses mindset, what do you think are the most common issues plaguing business owners, and what stops them from becoming successful?
In the wedding photography space, it's people having low confidence, absolutely, and then imposter syndrome. I'd say those two are big ones, and then also like people leaning into more of a scarcity mindset. And you hear this all the time when someone says like the market's oversaturated, or there's not enough for me, and there's too many photographers, and like things like that, man, that holds you back. And then comparison, like that's like a cocktail for disaster. You won't get success if you're running on those things. And I can tell you why. Like if you're coming in from, if you're leaning into that more like scarcity mindset, then you're putting your attention into looking around what other people are doing, and then maybe you're feeling jealous that they are like getting all the attention, or they're winning, or they're making more money, and not realizing that like success as a resource is endless. There's so much for everybody. And like you said, someone, a friend of yours does like flexible pricing or something. Hey, there's someone doing something totally different. So instead of comparing and looking around like that, like innovate, like do something different, think a little bit differently, position yourself differently. There's so many things that you can do. And the second that you give up what everybody thinks of you, and you're caring about that kind of stuff, and you're like comparing, instead of comparing, go out there and actually, here's the thing, like with marketing, if you're comparing to someone that's getting attention, like people, you have to earn people's attention. So the reason why someone will show up and listen to me, on my podcast or something, is because I've earned their attention. So that means like I've showed up for them over and over on my podcast. I show up for them over and over on my Instagram, or on this Clubhouse, or on your podcast, or wherever it is, and I'm earning attention, right? So if someone looks at me and goes, oh man, like I don't even want to start because Jai's already got it all, it's because I'm out there actually doing the work. I'm earning it. So instead of being jealous of the attention that I have, go out there and earn your own attention. Like give value to your community. Do something. Have a voice that's worth listening to in your community, however that is. And you'll act differently because you'll be putting your attention into the right thing instead of into the wrong thing. And I don't know about everybody listening right now, but I don't have enough energy myself to spread across like putting attention into the wrong things, because it just like takes my energy. So I have to make sure that I protect my energy by only concentrating on the right things. And that means if I have to unfollow some people because it's not filling my cup, then I'll absolutely do that. If I have to protect my time a little bit more and say no, I'll absolutely do that. Whatever it is that you have to do to get wherever you want to go to, like, then that's what you got to do. Absolutely.
Yeah. I'm actually often in your Clubhouse rooms, and the topic of confidence actually does get brought up quite often. So let's talk a little bit more about that, because it seems to be quite a big thing over here. Like people struggle with it a great deal, but I don't know why. Or maybe I do, because obviously I suffer from certain aspects of confidence.
Okay, so tell me what do you suffer with? Like tell me a bit, like with your confidence. What gives you maybe low confidence?
Probably, this is going to sound maybe a little bit silly, but public speaking actually was a big thing for me. And I tried to face that head on. I tried to, I gave a talk at a filmmakers conference in Rotterdam. And then obviously on the back end of that, we have this podcast. So, I've been slowly kind of creeping my way into tackling it, but tackling it and doing it, I don't know, I don't know what's the right or wrong approach to tackle a lack of confidence in anything, Does that make sense?
Yeah, look, one of the things with confidence is it's a long staircase up, but it takes the elevator back down. And what I mean by that is like, you got to take like step by step by step, just building that confidence. And when you get hit, like you get a negative review or someone says something negative or you're just having a shitty day, it's like, man, you hit the floor pretty fast. And it's hard to kind of try and stay up, isn't it?
Yeah, totally.
I think like building those blocks, man, like I talk about confidence a lot because I believe it's probably a source of my success because I'm not always confident, but I'm able to summon the confidence that I need at any particular time. And I've talked about this once before, but sometimes I borrow confidence from the past and I think about, a time that I felt amazing, a time that I impacted someone in a positive way, or I did something and how did I feel and how did I make people feel? And then when I like go into that space, then I can like, relax my shoulders and I can feel more confident and my head gets taller and the thing is, like, with confidence, and especially as a wedding photographer and as creative, is like people won't believe in you unless you believe in you. And if you have low confidence, you're simply not believing in yourself. Because if you ever talk to someone and they're shy and they're trying to avoid conversation, eye contact, and things like that, it's you always think there's something else happening there. And hey, I'm an introvert. You can be an introvert and confident. It doesn't mean like an extrovert's confident, because an extrovert can also have low confidence as well. It really does come down to playing on your strengths and allowing yourself to like slowly build those confidence with even small wins. That's what I do. So I guess like when I started as a wedding photographer, I shot a whole bunch of weddings for free. I shot about 8 weddings for free. And one of the reasons is because I've never shot a wedding before, I didn't know how to use my camera and I had low confidence. And so I figured if I went out there and I just started shooting some weddings, even before people paid me, I was basically building my confidence and I was getting those little wins. Like, yes, I did a great job today. And one little thing won and they loved the photos and I got to test out my client experience and I got to test out my booking system and I was building my confidence like step by step by step. And I think that's really important. And the next thing to build confidence is proof of concept. So a lot of the times is like, I believe I could have a successful podcast, for instance, but I'm not sure if I can, but I know how to do it. So then when you launch it and you do it and then it is a success, it's like, nice. Like the proof of concept is right there. And I feel confident that I pushed through that idea. Maybe I can push through to the next idea, or maybe I can level up to the next level, or maybe I can do a little bit more, or push a little bit more, or get more uncomfortable, or whatever it is. So it really is a long journey and it's different for everybody.
Yeah, that's actually one thing, because I remember reading it was a new term, a new like descriptor of like whether you're an introvert or an extrovert, and it was an introverted extrovert, and I thought, yeah, that kind of suits me, I suppose. Like sometimes I'm one way, sometimes I'm the other, but yeah, I remember listening to these kind of mechanisms that you yourself use to get your confidence back, remembering a time when you had confidence and then just like kind of re-bringing that moment back into your head to feel that, I don't know, an emotional swell or whatever the chemistry is in your body.
Wherever we put our attention, it's like that's what's going to be heightened. So if we put in our attention to like, oh man, no one likes me and this is not a good time and I'm not doing a great job and my photos suck and whatever, like of course like everything's going to come down with it. So the more that you put your attention into like, hey, you know what? Like I actually did that thing last week for that person. They loved it. And then you start coming back up. Like I am worth something. I do things for people, or, whatever it is to sort of push your confidence back up. But we all have to do it too. And that's one thing I want to say. It's like I've been working on my mindset for 14 years now. Ever since I've become conscious of like knowing how I make people feel and knowing how like mindset's the key to everything. And it's a slow burn, and it's something that you got to keep building. And I think so many people get disheartened because they're like, oh man, I've been working on my mindset for the last 3 days and nothing. And they don't realize like, it's like, man, it takes some work. Like it is hard work.
Yeah.
Earlier on, or a few moments ago, you mentioned about sort of leveling up. And so let's talk about limiting beliefs. Why do you think some people have them? Does it just come down to confidence, or is there something more to it? And how can people sort of combat them when they start to believe these limiting beliefs are true?
Well, there's a few different things, and I've got a thing at the moment called the Mindset Challenge. So it's like a mindset reset. And this week I did one on net worth.
Right.
And one thing is like with our inner circle, the people that you hang out with most. So Greg and Simon, like you guys are hanging out with each other there. Let me ask you guys, do you guys make similar income?
Yeah.
Yeah,
we work together in the same business. So yeah.
Yeah. Do most of your friends make similar income?
I would say so. I think, well,
I don't know. We've never asked.
I would say so, yeah. It's
Yeah.
it's not something that's openly talked about in the UK. I'm not sure if it's different in other parts of the world, but income is quite a taboo topic over here. But I would assume they're kind of similar.
Totally. Well, so what my point is, with your inner circle, with the people that you hang out with, a lot of the times we scale ourselves to what the limiting belief is of the people around us. Not so much even ourselves, but we see what's possible for the people around us. And then from there, we peg ourselves. And a lot of the times we don't want to stand out. We don't want to do something different. We don't want to go above and beyond because human nature, you want to be safe. You want to stay the same as everybody else. You want to be unremarkable. You want to be unseen. Like that's what we want, right? So that's why marketing is hard for so many people. But with your inner circle, like the old saying says like, you're only as good as the 5 people you hang out with. But it's also the same as like you only make as much money as the 5 people you hang out with, or you only do as much as the 5 people you hang out with. Like you only win the same awards as the 5 people you hang out with. You know, this is all true for me, absolutely. And a lot of the times, like if you do want to step up a level, the easiest way is to invite new people into your inner circle or join other people's inner circles and always be stepping upwards. Because once you start seeing someone, like for instance, you said before, like I've got a 7-figure business. Like, yes, I make 7 figures a year. But as soon as I did that, then a few of my friends were all now are like, you know what, I could make 7 figures a year. And now they're working differently and they're implementing different strategies. And now they're believing in themselves more because they're playing a bigger game. And because I unlocked it from my inner circle, it means other people are now unlocking it because they see the proof of concept. And I think that's why there's a beautiful thing with masterminds and with the business coach and with things like that, because it's like, hey, if you want to be in my inner circle, and I do this, like I pay for a business coach, I pay big money to be in someone's inner circle that makes hundreds of millions of dollars so I can see it's possible. So then I can go, that's what you do. They're the strategies. That's the big thinking that I need. And then all of a sudden, my limiting beliefs have completely changed because I'm no longer limited by what people believe around me, my family believe around me. I'm believing something from a whole nother circle. Now we get limiting beliefs thrown at us and we get advice thrown at us like it's free popcorn all the time, right? People love throwing that stuff at us and it comes from our friends and family and people trying to keep us safe. But I know for me, because my inner circle, I keep it so tight and I don't allow, people coming in and trying to shake my boat with what they think I can do. But I know a lot of people, their inner circle could be like their mom and their partner and like their best friend, and their best friend is not really living the life they want, and maybe their mom's not financially free like they want to be, but they accept the advice for free from those people, and what they're accepting is their limiting belief. So for instance, like if you, for instance, was like, I'm going to start a podcast and I want to make it a 6-figure podcast and I want to make money from all my sponsors and stuff. And if your mom was like, I don't think you should leave your job for that though, because it's risky, then you're pegging yourself of what her limiting belief is because she doesn't believe she could do it for herself, which does that mean you shouldn't try because she couldn't believe for herself? And I'm not saying anything about your mum there, but it's just often that we take advice from people that maybe shouldn't be giving us advice because they're not achieving the higher level success that we want to achieve in our business. And I'm talking in happiness, I'm talking about in wealth, I'm talking about in, all those things overall in relationships. But if you want to have an amazing marriage, if you want an amazing relationship, like don't take advice from your friend that's been single his whole life, because the limiting belief there, it's going to peg onto you and it's going to be hard to level up. Yeah. So in my mind, the easiest way to level up is like get into a room where you're no longer the smartest person. Get into a room where people are inspiring you, they're pushing you. There's not one person in my life that's been more successful than me that's told me to settle down, you can't do, you shouldn't do, you don't know how, you're out of your depth, get in your own lane. Like not one other person, but people under me are always telling me that. Jai, stop doing so much, you should calm down, you should take days off. Like, so you need to get into those rooms. Like where are you filling your cup? And think about the people that you're surrounding yourself with right now. Are they those people that are lifting you up, or are they projecting those limiting beliefs onto you?
As a funny note, when we started this podcast, my mother and I are very close. She supports me to no end. I love her very much. I saw her popping up. You're lucky she's not here. That's clear.
Wait, is she on Clubhouse? Is she on Clubhouse?
Yeah, I gave her an invite because she's
that's so nice.
She likes to help people out with positive thinking. Funnily enough.
That's so good. Shout out to your mum, man. That's so good.
Thanks. Well, yeah. So, like Greg said specifically, they believe it's true, which is funny because these are just things that we tell ourselves. You know, they're not actually the truth, are they? They are like, we've heard them, we've internalized them, and they've become a little bit more than the truth. They've become like our truth, and they hold us back. So I know, like, it can be a really damaging thing to kind of believe in this kind of limiting mindset because you don't get anywhere. And I remember struggling with that, like during my teen years. You know, I'd keep a journal, and it's funny looking back at my journal, and I'd be like, "Wow, what was I thinking?" But you know,
it's funny though because like, you know, I can make 7 figures a year, but I still have I have limiting beliefs, like everyone does, and so. Like all the listeners out there, if you're making 10 grand a year and your friends are wherever they're at and you believe what they believe, like, don't forget, like, you're always at that stage. I've met people that make hundreds of millions of dollars, and they, like, I can listen to them and their limiting beliefs as well, you know, of why they're not a billionaire and like things like that. So if we're all on the same path, it's all the same journey. It's just different stages of the journey, but it's not easy for anybody at any level to break through those limiting beliefs. And that's literally when you have the epiphany moment, when you can break through it. That's when you go, oh, I'm at another level now. And then when you get to another level, like the ceiling smashes, you also get another floor. So that means you'll never go below that floor anymore. Because even now, if I go bankrupt, it means shit to me because I can literally, like, I know how to make new money. I'm already at a new level. So it doesn't matter about the money in my bank account. It matters, like, in my mind. What can I do? How can I hustle? How can I make things work? So just remembering, like, new ceiling, new floor.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned the ceilings. You are big on setting goals, and in particular, setting unrealistic goals, which I found really strange to hear initially because it sounds kind of counterintuitive. So can you tell us about why you should set unrealistic goals?
Yeah, this is my favorite thing, man. And I've been setting unrealistic goals since I was a baby, I reckon. So it's funny because, look, one of the things that I hate people saying to me, and I've hated this my whole life with vengeance, when people say, be realistic. Jai, be realistic. You know, hey, I want to be a 6-figure wedding photographer. Be realistic though. Like, is that real? And when people say that, that's like a limiting belief that someone's giving me. But my whole thing is like, be unrealistic, man, because we only live once and life is magical and there's so many things we can do. And who are you to tell me what is realistic and what's unrealistic for me? And so with unrealistic goals, right? And I'd love to put this in context of like the Wedding Photography Summit. So the Wedding Photography Summit was like, I'm good at marketing. And so I was like, I reckon I can run the biggest wedding photography workshop in the world. And that would be 5,000 people. And I actually believe I can get that easy. So that was my realistic goal. And I was like, well, let's make it unrealistic then. 10,000 people and let's put it out to everyone. Tell them that I want 10,000 people so then I'm accountable and I'm going to work hard for it. Now, I remember when I hit 5,000 and that was like a week or two before the actual summit. And I was like, if I went with my realistic goal, I would have just stopped right here and I would have been happy. But because I'm going unrealistic, I'm like, man, now is the hard bit. Now I have to do the last 5% where I've got to show up and got to keep pushing. And we got to 8,000 people, but I surpassed my realistic goal by 3,000, which is huge, right? But if I didn't do that, imagine if I didn't even hit my realistic goal. Now that's fucking disheartening. It's like, man, I had a realistic goal that I believed I could have done it and I didn't even hit that. Like that's terrible. At least not hitting an unrealistic goal. It's like, well, I didn't want to hit it because if I hit it, it was too realistic. I need it to be much bigger. I need to think of a bigger game. Now, everyone that I've ever met that's like really successful in any way, they've always said the biggest regret that I've ever had is I always played small. And even when I thought I was playing big, it was just always small. Small plans means small results and, small actions, small goals, like all those things. And for me, I still regret it. I'm like, why didn't I aim for 20,000 people? You know, why did I go for 10? Why am I playing so small? So the next summit that we're running in 2 months, I'm like, well, we're going for 20,000 now. Like, let's ramp it up and see what else I can do. So if you want to if you want to grow yourself, if you want to see where the magic is, and if you want to get people inspired, having an unrealistic goal is so inspiring because it's like, shit, I want to get involved in what this person's doing. This is incredible. But having a realistic goal is so uninspiring because it's just work. It's like, okay, today's goal is I want to go to work. I'm going to catch the train. I'm going to go to work. Well, that's realistic, isn't it? And it's like, well, I don't get around that. It's boring. It's uncreative. It's unmotivating. But when you have an unrealistic goal, then it's like you're going to bounce yourself out of bed, hit that alarm. You probably won't even have an alarm because you're so motivated by the fact that you got no idea how you're going to hit this crazy goal, but you're ready for it and you're doing it and you're getting creative and you're getting motivated and all those things are coming and you're going to do so much more than what you even believe. So yeah, in my personal opinion, I think if you're not, setting yourself unrealistic goals and pushing yourself, I think you're doing yourself an injustice. Like, I don't know why you'd be playing so safe, to be honest.
Yeah. Just out of interest, talking about the money, the amount of Facebook ads that you spent on the summit, and I've totally forgotten the number.
It was around $100,000, I think.
$100,000.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's how hard you're pushing to get an unrealistic goal. That is incredible.
I wouldn't have done that if it was 5,000 because I could do that on my own. Like, that's the thing. It's like, how much are you willing to go all in? And if I'm not willing to go all in, where I'm like so uncomfortable and I'm spending all my savings and I'm fully going all in, then I'm like, then I shouldn't even start doing it because it's not worth doing if I'm not going to go all in. Like, the thing is like, go all in and go big and like push something. And yeah, that's what it's all about, man. And
yeah.
For everything I do, I go all in and I go unrealistic, and I think it's the reason why I'm able to get as much success as I do in the businesses that I have and the things that I do, because I wouldn't do it unless I believed in it. And if I don't, if I'm believing in it, then I'm going to go all in. I'm not going to go 90% energy, 90% money. I'm going 100% all the way.
I love that. It's like go big or go home, but for you, there is no go home. There's just go big or go bigger. I fucking love that.
Hey, and the thing is, like, and when people say, and I was talking about this before with like having a job where I work for myself, when people say like when you fail, like I actually don't believe that you can fail. And I think like the bigger that I've gone, like I've never been able to fail because I know myself. I know that I'll keep showing up and I know how relentless I am. So what if I did fail? It's like, well, I'd find another way and I'd stay up late and I'd work out YouTube ads and I'd work out, Pinterest ads and I'd work out a different way, a different influencer, different person, and I'd keep showing up and I'd keep showing up. So I think when people say that they've failed or they're going to fail, it's because they've decided that they're going to fail. Like they've literally gone like, well, the next step's just a little bit too hard for me now. I'd rather fail, and that's okay, which is totally fine. But for me, I'm like, I know where I'd fail and I know when I wouldn't fail because I know what I'd do to make it work.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that because I butchered a quote by Thomas Edison on the last episode about, the 1,000 ways how not to make a light bulb. But it's like every lesson you learn along the journey is a lesson learned. It's a lesson learned. There is no fail. There's just you do it again and you do it again and you do it again. And each time, if you take a step back, it's fine because you've learned how to not take that particular step back again, and you won't do it again.
Or even look at someone like Elon Musk. Like how many rockets did he blow up? And on the last rocket, like before it blew up, he was literally said, if this rocket blows up, that's all my money. And then it flew, and it was the first one that flew. And it's like, fuck me, man. Like, how many times does this dude just keep showing up, keep blowing up rockets, keep getting, like, slayed online? Like, people showing up, like, hating him, thinking he can't, like, he's too crazy, he's too unrealistic. And he kept doing it. And now it's like he's the guy that invented a rocket that lands. That's pretty cool. But it wasn't an easy thing for him.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's funny, just before we jumped onto the podcast to start recording, Greg saw that Elon Musk had a room. He was like, oh, shit.
I don't think he was in the room this time, though.
Oh, right, okay.
There was a room about him.
Yeah, I actually seen that room as well. I was like, ooh.
He's like, oh, no, we're not going to get any listeners today. So you're in business. How do you even realize what goals to even set in the first place?
Well, I think you've got to have a vision for your life, and you got to know, as in like you got to know what you want. So it's pretty hard to go out and just go like, oh, I want, I don't know, something, and then it's hard to go after something if you got no clarity on what you want. So I think for myself, my unrealistic goal when I first started as a wedding photographer is I didn't know how to use the camera. I didn't have any clients. I didn't have anything, right? And so what I said was, I came home and I said to my wife, hey, I'm going to quit my job, which is a well-paying job, to become a full-time wedding photographer. And she said, do you even know how to use your camera? And I was like, no. She's like, do you have any clients? I was like, I don't. That's why I need to quit my job, because if I quit my job, I'll go all in and I have to fight to make it work. So I quit my job, had no clients, and I had 2 mortgages and everything else. And then the first thing was, it was like, oh, I didn't realize I was at the end of the wedding season in Melbourne. And I was like, damn it, I won't even be able to get any work, even no matter how hard I hustled, until the end of the year. And for me, it was like a little bit of an oversight. But the first thing I was like, okay, my unrealistic goal for the first 2 years of business was to run a workshop, to make 6 figures, be published, and be an international wedding photographer. They were my unrealistic goals. And I can tell you right now, I hit all of them, which is cool. But the first thing I did is, because I had such an unrealistic goal, it's like, what do I need to do? I've quit my job and I need to do something. So I had a $20,000 car at the time, and I straight away sold it. I think it's worth $25,000. I sold it for just $20 just to get it out. Sold all the stuff in our house. I sold the TV. I sold all the stuff, and my now wife wasn't that stoked about it. And I bought a plane ticket for both of us, and she didn't have a job, by the way. She was studying university at the time. I bought a plane ticket for both of us to go to America, because I knew if I went to America, it was wedding season and I had to start shooting weddings right now. And I also knew that if I shot a wedding over there, I'd be an international wedding photographer. So I booked flights and a trip over there for 3 months, and then with no weddings booked. And then I just started hustling everywhere. I contacted all the magazines. I contacted wedding photographers, wedding planners, wedding venues. I put it out, my story out to everyone. I put a story out into all the publications. Like, anyone that would listen to what I had to say, I was like telling them what my story was, what I was doing, how ambitious I was, the unrealistic goal. People shared it because it was like, dang, here's some weird Australian guy that's got some crazy goal. All right, let's see how this goes, right? Because it's inspiring. So I did that, and I shot 8 weddings, and I made some connections around there. I met, a whole lot of cool brands, a whole lot of good photographers and stuff. And then when I come back to Australia, I was an international wedding photographer. And in my town where I was a big deal, because like, there's the guy that shoots in America and gets to do all this cool stuff. He just shot some weddings in New York and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then I was booking work real quick, and then I was able to I got all of those weddings published in different magazines and different blogs. And then a friend, which Dan O'Day's here, but a friend, Todd, asked me to come and talk at a workshop thing up north in Brisbane. So I went and did that. And then I decided to put on my own workshop, and I did all of it. I became a published international wedding photographer, and I had a workshop all in the first 24 months of business. And I got sponsors, and I did everything else. So it was unrealistic, but man, I went after it. I went after it. I wasn't going to let anything stop me. So, it was an incredible time. And for me, it's not about the destination. It's like, I love the journey. I love the hustle. I love being in that space where, we had to get rid of our house and move into a share house because I couldn't afford rent anymore and had no car. So I'm just like, getting car next door and Ubers to, and hiring cars to get to the next wedding, and not having any gear because I didn't have any money. So I was just hiring whatever crappy gear I could off my friends to make it work, not using the right gear and the right lenses. And man, I love being in that space because there's so much growth and you learn so much about yourself. Like, it's endless possibilities. It's a huge adventure, and that's what life's about. It's not about the destination and the end game. It's like, let's get in there and make stuff happen.
Yeah, it's clear that you love the journey and love the grind. If people have decided they want to set an unrealistic goal and they've set it, how do they sort of track that, and what should they be doing once they've sort of set that unrealistic goal? How should they be grinding to get there?
Well, I guess one thing is, like, if you hit the goal, then it wasn't unrealistic. I'm always very disappointed if I hit any of my unrealistic goals. Like, if I did get 10,000 people at my wedding photography summit, I would have been upset because everyone was like, why are you upset? It was, well, fuck, I didn't think big enough, didn't I? Like, I need to be doing more. So I think it comes down to, like, if you're unrealistic, like, I'm just looking through the audience right now because we're on Clubhouse. I know this is going to be on a podcast, but we're on Clubhouse. And if I'm looking through, and shout out to Dan, actually, that's in the audience. He was actually, I'm pretty sure I met him at that first workshop that I talked at. So hopefully we can get him up to at the end, and we can actually ask him about that talk that I did in Brisbane, my very first one.
Definitely.
Because I was bloody nervous about it. But it's easy to track because it's like, if you give yourself a deadline, so I always give myself a deadline. So it's like 1 year until this is happening, or, I gave myself and the team a deadline for the Wedding Photography Summit. I thought about it, and then I gave ourselves 8 weeks, or was it like 6 weeks for it to be live? And I was like, we've got 6 weeks. There's no excuses. Let's make this happen. And everyone's like, 6 weeks? What, for 10,000 people? Like, I don't know if that's possible. And I'm like, exactly. Like, let's make that work. And I think like just tracking it with like hitting even smaller goals, so like smaller impactful goals. So it's like maybe your unrealistic goal is you want to launch a podcast. If you want to launch a podcast, like give yourself a deadline, give yourself 3 weeks. And in the 3 weeks, you need to have guests lined up. So you've got a few podcasts to launch. You need to have your artwork, some new photos. You need a new blog. You need to publish it onto all the platforms. You have to have your show notes sorted, find an editor, like all those things. And give yourself 3 weeks, make it unrealistic. So that way you're going after it. And then you're going to make so much magic, because from that, you're opening up doors, you're going to meet new people, you're going to be in the thick of it, you're going to be so busy that you won't even realize how many opportunities are right there in front of you. And then with that momentum, keep going with the momentum. Like don't stop the car, just put it into another gear and keep going.
Yeah. You know, you've kind of given me a buzz. I kind of want to hear what other people's unrealistic goals are, if they're going to be setting any. I'm excited for that. I'm excited.
It's really exciting, and I think when I ask people, people always start off with realistic. They always say unrealistic goals, but they start off realistic because they don't want to be called out. People are so afraid of someone going, "That's not even real. That's unrealistic. Like don't even think like that. Like." Oh, that's impossible. People are so scared to voice what they truly want, especially if it's something to do with money. Like if you got me on this podcast and if I say, Greg, truly, I want $1 million in my bank. That's what I want. And then it's like, well, fuck you, man. Everyone wants that, you know, like it's unrealistic as well. And like, you know, so there's so many things and we feel vulnerable when we're actually put our true hopes and dreams out to the world. But I want to challenge people. I want them to actually go, man, unapologetically tell people what you want. Tell the universe what you want. Like actually like manifest that stuff, because if you're telling people, I guarantee it's going to motivate people, just like how you guys said you got motivated just now. It's going to motivate people to want to help you on that path, because now I'm thinking, well, how can I help to get you that $1 million? Like actually I could help you by putting you on my podcast or something. Like what products do you have? You know, I can help you with that. And then I'll think differently. And so will everyone around you. And that collectively, people love to see people getting out of their comfort zone and like, you know, going for the underdog. And I know I love the underdog. So yeah, that's my story.
You're right though, because I'm kind of feeling scared to put my goals out there. Are you feeling that way, Greg? Do you feel that way?
Put them out.
I need to sit down and really think of some unrealistic goals. I've not got any right now, but I need to go away and do that.
That's right. Yeah, I feel like it needs like a really kind of meditative type of think on your life and what you really truly want. But you've given me something to work on, I have to say. You've mentioned you know, you should never be the smartest person in the room, and that you yourself have a business coach. How has this helped you? And do you think this would help our listeners to have a business coach?
Man, like not having a business coach in business is one of the biggest, like I hate saying this because it's like me trying to sell my own services, but it's not. Like it's the biggest injustice you can do for yourself. It's like a boxer jumping in the ring and not having a coach in the corner. And the thing is, like the coach in the corner doesn't have to be as good as a boxer as the person in the ring, but they need to be able to help the boxer do the thing that they need to do, which is just train and just fight. Like that's it. Where the coach, he thinks of strategies. He thinks of what's the next move. He thinks of what's the next fight. He thinks of like what's the next destination. What's the future? And I think that's what it's all about. And we forget that, and we think, you know what? Like we get so stuck in our own ego and pride, and we think we can do it on our own. I'm self-made. I did it on my own. And I don't think there's any honor in doing anything on your own. I think the more the people that you get in your circle, below you and above you, the more help that you get, the more empathy you have in that sense of like, hey, I'm creating something that's bigger than myself. It's not all about me all the time. I think you're going to go so much further and unlock yourself so much further than believing you can do. You're the best editor. You're the best at business. You're the best at photography. You're the best at Lightroom presets and like whatever it is, right? And we all think it. Let's be honest. And I just think it's like it's the biggest killer.
Yeah.
That's what I think. I think like if you want to find out where your ceiling is, like that's where your ceiling is. Like not asking for help from someone. Now, I'm not telling people to go out there and invest big money into a business coach because you might not be ready. You have to be actually ready, because a business coach, generally, they're different to a mentor. A mentor is going to tell you some strategies. A business coach is going to give you that energy to make stuff happen. And if you're not ready for that, then you're not ready for that, and it's going to be a waste of money. Someone's going to come in their own terms, and they're going to get the epiphany of like, you know what? I'm stuck and I don't know what the next level is. And I know Jai's done it before, and he's been there and he's relentlessly gone after it. And I know he hasn't just read the books, but he's got the mindset of how to push through that stuff, because he's actually failed and he's actually been successful. So he's got something he's going to be able to give me. Now, I think like that when I hire my business coach, or coaches, and I'm like, I know, and I've seen where they failed and I've seen where they got their success, but it's not from a book. I want to know actually, how did you feel? How did you handle it? What mind frame were you in? Like, how did you keep pushing? How did you keep showing up? That's what I want to hear, because, what goals did you set? How unrealistic were they? Did you hit them? Those things are the things that make a big difference. And I think like one of the things that people hold themselves back in is believing they're the best at everything and they can do everything on their own, and they don't ask for help, and they don't get a coach, or they don't get a mentor. Like it's crazy to me. This
is going to sound absolutely daft, but I'm going to bring this back to my kids. So my youngest daughter, Harley, trying to get her to do anything is a challenge, because she doesn't accept help from anyone. Like, she has to do it by herself. Every time. It doesn't matter if she's putting on her clothes or trying to wipe the table. And, I feel like that is kind of us in business. We're trying to do these things on our own, and there are just so many more efficient ways of doing the stuff that needs to be done. Sometimes it just needs a parent to help you put on your clothes.
So you're thinking of the business coach like a parent?
Yeah. A guiding hand. A guiding hand.
I like the analogy of the boxer, because it's like you're in the fight and you can't see what's happening to you right that moment.
Yeah.
So you step back and talk to the person who's outside of the fight, and they can see things a bit clearer, or they can give you some different strategy or advice. Yeah. I like that analogy.
Yeah, that's cool.
It's exactly how it works too. Like, it really, really is, because I see it all the time. Like, man, I sometimes wish my friends would ask me for advice, because I'm looking around, but I'm like, like when I see someone and where they're at and with their mindset and stuff, I'm like, I know where you are, and I also know your next level and the one after that and the one after that, and you have to go onto those yourself. But like, being able to identify where they're at and how they could double their income, and a 6-figure business owner, where they're leaving 6 figures on the table, like things like that. Like, I can see it all. And that's not being egotistical. It's just the same as like photography. It's like, if you're good at photography, you can see when someone's not using light properly. You can see when someone could have posed better. It's like, it becomes second nature. It's like, I can see where the next step is for you and how you can get there. But it's up to that person to be ready and willing to ask for help.
Yes. Obviously, Jai, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thanks for having us, guys. I really appreciate you and your community and everything else. So thank you so much.
And hopefully you've got a few new UK listeners to your podcast and supporters to your business map and everything. So in case people want to go out there and find your content, do you want to tell them where to go?
Yeah, come over and send me a DM. If anything resonated with you, just on Instagram, jailong.co. Send me a DM, say hi. I'm always there saying hi to everybody. I'd love to connect. You don't need to be shy. And everything else is on my website as well, which is just the same, jailong.co. Nice and easy. But don't be shy. I'm always happy to hear about your dreams, your unrealistic goals, the transformation that you're going after and everything else. And I'm happy to help always. So, yeah.
Awesome. And people can find us at cinematefilms.co.uk. Our Instagram is cinematefilms.co.uk as well. Cinemate Films rather. So is our Facebook, Cinemate Films. We hope you have loved this episode. And if you did, you can join us on Patreon at patreon.com/perspective by Cinemate. As for as £1, you can support the podcast. And for the price of a coffee every month, you can get access to all the Clubhouse Q&As, the roundtable discussions, and even more bonus content that won't be available anywhere else. If you don't have any money to give, that's totally okay. You are our best friends. Maybe just hit that subscribe button so you know when the next episode goes online, which will be for free, obviously. Maybe just leave a review. That would be very cool. And we'll even give you a shout out on the next episode of the podcast if you do, just to show our love. However,
In the meantime,
enjoy your life.